The first thing that felt wrong was the sound. Plastic slid across marble and stopped. Not a fall. Not an accident. An ID card rested near a polished shoe that did not move. I was standing by the number dispenser when it happened. The screen refreshed. The printer behind the counter clicked once. The lobby stayed quiet longer than it should have. Mark Sullivan, the branch manager, did not look down. He adjusted his stance instead. A small shift of weight. The space between the shoe and the card narrowed just enough. Lisa Grant. The teller froze with her fingers resting on the keyboard. She waited. No one spoke. The ID stayed on the floor. The man at the counter was older. His name, I would later learn, was Richard Coleman. He wore a dark suit that showed regular use, not display. The fabric had been pressed recently. His shoes were worn evenly at the toes. A silver tie clip caught the overhead light when he moved. He stood square to the counter. Hands relaxed. Eyes forward. Nothing in his posture asked for assistance. Pick it up. Mark Sullivan said, not loud, not sharp, just clear. Richard Coleman looked down at the card, then back at the counter, as if checking whether this was part of the process. He bent carefully. One knee made a sound before his hand reached the floor. Mark Sullivan glanced at his watch. The card slid a fraction of an inch when Richard's fingers touched it. The shoe had not moved, but it did not need to. Richard straightened slowly and placed the ID on the counter. He aligned it parallel to the edge. Both hands released it at the same time. His posture returned to neutral. Lisa Grant turned her monitor slightly inward. She did not type. I'd like to add my son as a signatory, Richard said. His voice stayed level. Mark Sullivan nodded once and asked for identification again. The earlier exchange was treated as complete. Richard complied. A driver's license. Then a passport. Each document was taken between two fingers. Not to hold. To avoid contact. The passport was flipped. Then flipped again. Despite the visible security features, Mark narrated the steps while he worked. He explained basic procedures. He did not wait for confirmation. Richard did not interrupt. Behind them, a customer at the adjacent window was waved forward. No additional documents were requested. No second signature. The transaction ended before Richard's passport was set back down. Some accounts require extra care. Mark Sullivan said, he did not say which ones. He did not say why. Richard nodded once. He produced a platinum credit card and a folded Social Security card from his wallet. Both were inspected under the overhead lights and set down with space between them, as if they should not touch. A signature form slid across the counter. Richard signed. The strokes were steady, deliberate. The manager compared it to the screen, paused, then tore the page free. The paper arced toward the bin. It missed and landed near the base of the counter. You dropped something, Mark Sullivan said. Richard did not look down. His hands stayed where they were. After a beat, Mark picked up the paper himself and slid a new form forward. That was when I noticed Ethan Coleman. He stood near a column several steps back. Tailored suit. Phone in his hand. Screen dark. He had not moved since the first exchange. He was not watching the manager. He was watching Richard. When the paper hit the floor, Ethan's jaw tightened for a fraction of a second. Then it was released. He did not step forward. Richard signed again. The manager processed the request at half speed. His fingers tapped the keyboard slowly. He explained what a signatory meant. Repeating himself. Richard listened without correcting him. When it was finished, the documents were pushed back across the counter. Not handed over. Try not to drop these, Mark said. Richard gathered his identification and thanked him. They walked toward the exit together. Richard first. Ethan is half a step behind. A security guard tracked them with his eyes until the doors closed. Mark Sullivan had already turned to the next customer. My number was called. I stepped forward, still thinking about the ID on the floor, the shoe that never moved, and the man by the column who never once reached for his phone. I would learn later who he was. Nothing announced a change. The lobby did not react when Richard and Ethan Coleman left. The doors closed. The sound seal returned. The number displayed advanced by 1. I stepped to the counter when my number was called. Lisa Grant completed my transaction without delay. 1 form. 1 signature. No additional questions. She slid my receipt forward and looked past me, already waiting for the next instruction. Behind her, Mark Sullivan was laughing quietly with a customer I hadn't seen earlier. His posture had loosened. The stiffness from moments ago was gone. The system had reset. I left the bank, thinking the incident was over. It wasn't. 2 hours later, my phone vibrated while I was still downtown. A notification from a business news feed. No headline yet. Just a brief market alert about a delayed wire transfer scheduled for the following morning. $5 billion. Institution pending confirmation. At the time, it meant nothing to me. By late afternoon, the name Westlake National Bank began circulating in short messages between people who usually didn't text during business hours. No explanations. Just confirmations. Something had been pulled. Quietly. Inside the bank. The escalation didn't announce itself either. It started with data. Security footage was flagged automatically when a transaction exceeded normal verification time thresholds. Richard Coleman's interaction had crossed 3 internal benchmarks. No single one triggered a review. Together, they did. A compliance analyst in a regional office cued the footage. 4 camera angles. No sound distortion. No gaps. The ID sliding across marble. The shoe repositioning. The pause before pick it up. The footage didn't label its intent. It didn't need to. By the next morning, an internal request went out for Mark Sullivan's verification history. Not disciplinary. Not accusatory. A routine pull. 12 months. Customer-facing transactions only. The pattern appeared within minutes. Same request. Different duration. Certain customers cleared verification in under 5 minutes. Others routinely exceeded 15. Age and account complexity didn't explain it. Account status didn't either. The deviation repeated across the same visible variables. The system didn't name that correlation. It highlighted deviation at 9:27 a.m. Mark Sullivan received a calendar invite while standing at his desk. Subject line: Process review. No description. Required attendance. Conference room A. He arrived early. The room was windowless. A long table. 3 chairs are already occupied. Elaine Torres, Regional Director. A compliance officer. Legal counsel. No coffee. No introductions. Mark sat. Elaine Torres did not raise her voice. She didn't lower it either. "We're reviewing a customer interaction from yesterday," she said. Mark nodded once. An elderly gentleman. There was some confusion. She tapped the remote. The screen lit up. The ID on the floor. The pause. The shoe. Mark shifted in his seat. His hands folded. Then unfolded. He leaned forward slightly, as if proximity might change framing. "That slipped," he said. I followed protocol. Elaine advanced the footage, frame by frame. Then she changed screens. A spreadsheet appeared. Rows, columns, color blocks, average verification time. Standard deviation. Outliers. Mark stared at the data longer than necessary. His foot repositioned under the table. No one commented. At the same time, across town, Ethan Coleman stood in a glass-walled conference room overlooking the river. His phone rested face up on the table. The screen displayed a single line of text from a CFO. Transfer rerouted. Pending new institution. No meeting was called. No announcement made. Ethan dismissed 2 agenda items and excused himself. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't explain. By midday, the delayed transfer had become a topic of concern. At Next Gen Financial, executives gathered without a scheduled meeting time. The merger documents remained unsigned. Deadlines shifted. Shareholders began asking questions. Is this temporary? Someone asked. Ethan answered once. Yes, until it isn't. Back in conference room A, Elaine Torres closed the folder. There will be a formal audit, she said. Independent. Effective immediately. Mark straightened his tie. Is this disciplinary? It's procedural, she replied. He nodded. But the movement was delayed. By late afternoon, Mark Sullivan's system access was limited to view only. His calendar cleared itself. A second email followed. Administrative leave pending review. No explanation. No apology. No confrontation. The bank floor continued operating. Tellers processed deposits. Customers took numbers. Security cameras rotated. By the end of the day, the $5 billion transfer had been reassigned to another institution. No press release. No statement. Just a routing change. That evening, I passed the bank again on my way home. The lights were still on. Mark Sullivan's office was dark. Inside, the system was adjusting, because the same error had finally been measured. The next morning, the doors opened on time. The number display resets to 0. The process, now under review, kept running. The decision didn't arrive with noise. By the time I learned the transfer had been reassigned, the bank had already opened and closed twice without incident. No signage changed. No statements were posted. The same glass doors slid open on schedule. The number display resets to 0. Customers took tickets and waited. From the outside, nothing looked different. Inside, the routing was... The $5 billion transfer did not pass through Westlake National. It moved elsewhere. Quietly. Without ceremony. No one announced a cancellation. The merger documents remained unsigned. Then were rescheduled. Calendars adjusted themselves. In the branch, Mark Sullivan did not return. His name was removed from the daily staffing sheet. His office stayed dark. The desk inside remained as he'd left it. Monitor off. Chair pushed in. A tie still looped over the armrest. Access logs showed view-only status until noon. Then none at all. The system did not explain. It didn't have to. A formal audit began the same week. Independent reviewers pulled transaction footage across multiple branches. The process expanded without comment. The way systems do when thresholds are crossed. Timelines were measured. Deviations mapped. Training schedules populated themselves in internal calendars. No one was accused on the floor. No apologies were delivered at the counter. The correction happened above the counter line. At Next Gen Financial, the board reconvened behind closed doors. The delay was framed as temporary. Then, necessary. Shareholders asked for timelines. They received ranges. The market adjusted. Analysts recalculated. Are we proceeding? Someone asked. Ethan Coleman answered once. With different partners. That was the extent of it. No press conference followed. No public explanation linked the delay to a single interaction. The reroute stood on its own as a business decision, logged and approved. Weeks later, the merger closed with another institution handling the transfer. The paperwork included new language, independent service audits, demographic benchmarking, ongoing compliance reporting. It read like boilerplate until you noticed the specificity. The cost of delay was absorbed. The reroute propagated through every dependent system. At Westlake National, the audit concluded without spectacle. A notice circulated internally. Process revisions, mandatory retraining, third-party oversight, anonymous reporting channels. None of it mentioned a name. Mark Sullivan's employment ended the same way his access had. Without announcement. A line item changed. Benefits terminated. Credentials revoked. His role ceased to exist in the system. The branch continued operating. I returned a month later to make another deposit. Lisa Grant was still at the counter. The number displayed advanced by 1. The printer clicked behind her. She asked for my ID once, scanned it, and slid it back without pause. No extra steps. No commentary. A man ahead of me, older, neatly dressed, completed his transaction in under 3 minutes. No additional documents were requested. No second signature. The process closed cleanly. I watched the shoe line under the counter. Nothing blocked the floor. After my receipt was printed, Lisa handed it to me directly. She didn't look past me this time. She didn't wait for instructions. Outside, the bank sign reflected afternoon light the same way it always had. From the street, there was no evidence of what had changed. No plaque, no press release, no corrective banner. Only the routing was different. Only the process. I saw Ethan Coleman once more. Weeks later, in a different building across town. Glass walls, a longer table. The merger papers were being signed. No cameras, no applause. Just pens moving across pages and folders closing. He didn't look around the room. He didn't need to. The correction had already happened. Not because anyone demanded it, because the system had been forced to account for itself.
Some corrections never make the news. They happen in access logs, routing changes, staffing sheets, and the quiet return of a document to the right hand. Black CEO Tales follows those moments, not for revenge, but for the point where a system is made to show its work. Subscribe for stories where the small record matters, the skipped step comes back, and dignity is restored through process, not noise. This story is fictional. The characters, events, and settings were created for storytelling, educational, and reflective purposes. Any resemblance to real people or real events is purely coincidental.